The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers and their Grizzly range. The next generation of Grizzly is here. Meet the Grizzly Ultimate, the most powerful AC Level 2 charger for home use. With a maximum current of 80 amps, that's 19.2 kilowatts. Your vehicle could be charged up to twice as fast as a standard level 2 and up to 15 times faster than a level 1. And of course, it's Wi-Fi connected, so you can take control of your home charging, view stats, set a charging schedule, take part in demand response programs, and control your charger remotely. And that joins the lineup alongside the original Grizzly Classic. The Grizzly Duo, designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a portable charging station. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. Those chargers can adjust the current from 16 amps up to 40 amps, that's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, the Grizzly Ranger IP67 rated, built in Canada, and with the highest quality materials. You can order yours right now. Go to unitedchargers.com, that's unitedchargers.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's Friday, May the 23rd, 2025, and this is episode number 89. On today's show, we'll be talking about the debut of the Xiaomi YU7, or U7, the launch of the four-door Dodge Charger, the coming deaths of EV incentives, and of course, much, much more. I'm your host, Dominic Yoni, and I am joined today by the convivial, Mr. Tom Malogny, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. Later in the show, we hope to be joined by Jordan Schleifer from Out of Spec, who has been driving the Cadillac Vistic and also just spent some time with the Tello team. And in just a little while, we will be joined by Mike Murphy, a political media strategist who's worked on a number of high-profile campaigns and who now runs the EV Politics Project / American EV Jobs Alliance when he's not appearing on as an analyst on NBC News or on his podcast Hacks on Tap with his co-host David Axelrod. So we'll be talking with him about the government trying to kill the EV tax credit and California's emission rules. But first, I guess, Tom, let's get some headlines out of the way real quick. See, there's only two of us here today at the very moment, but like I just said, we'll have some people joining us, and but I'm going to just I need to bring up a little clip here on the screen while I introduce this thing.
What are you clipping?
Let's see if it's going. Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess we need to also mute that somehow. Like that. Okay. So Xiaomi has launched its YU7 crossover SUV. It's its second vehicle. Now, this car will never be sold in the U.S., but it still feels like important enough to put at the top of the news and put on our thumbnail this week. And that's because of the reception of Xiaomi's first vehicle, a sedan called the SU7. It's sold over 258,000 units, all in China, in about a year's time. And the company plans to expand outside of China and probably sell in Europe by 2027. So the SU7, or the SU7, is the car that Ford CEO drove for like 6 months or so, and he loved it, was raving about it. So at its launch, Xiaomi CEO Lei Jun made direct comparisons between the Model Y and the YU7. So the other thing about this car that makes it so important is it's been designed and engineered to compete against the Tesla Model Y, which has been like the biggest selling car in the world. See, with Tesla sales already under pressure in China, it could force Tesla to rethink like its whole vehicle strategy. So at the launch, Lei Jun, of course, made comparisons with the Model Y and YU7. And I saw on Electric this morning, they have an article that they put up yesterday that talks about the one here that talks about the comparison and makes comparisons and has a list of all the different things. But here's just a few numbers. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I did want to mention some specs. The YU7 is built on the Modena platform. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Modena. It features an 800-volt architecture and uses silicon carbide for power conversion, so it makes it super efficient. It comes in 3 trims, with one of two different batteries. It's got a 96.3 kilowatt hour LFP pack and a 101.7 kilowatt hour nickel cobalt manganese pack. So these are a good bit bigger than the 78.4 kilowatt hour packs that come in the refreshed Tesla Model Y. So it should have like a lot more range. I believe it's probably going to be mostly a little over $400 or $400, 400 miles. The YU7 is also a bigger car, so it's 196.8 inches long. It's like 11 inches longer than the Model Y. That means a bigger wheelbase as well, with more room in the second row and more storage in back. And actually, the wheelbase is the same size as the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6. They both have that 3,000 millimeter wheelbase. And so, yeah, Xiaomi says it can charge from 10 to 80% in 12 minutes, which makes it like a 5.2 or 3 C charge rate, very fast. So we are not sure if that's for both of these different packs, the LFP and the NMC, but it's very likely their charging performance is very close. The quickest one goes to 62 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour in 3.23 seconds, which is a little quicker than the Tesla Model Y Performance. The old one, we haven't seen the new one yet. The one important number that we don't know is the price, but it's expected to be in the same neighborhood as the Tesla Model Y. Like, it should be close. There could be a little bit cheaper in one trim, or maybe a bit more expensive. We don't know yet for sure. We'll find out in July, or maybe slightly sooner. I think first deliveries maybe start in July, but yeah. So Tom, so you've seen this. I don't know if you've looked at this much at all, but because this just happened yesterday. Yesterday morning, they sprung this out on the world. And how worried do you think Tesla should be about this car?
Well, how worried should everybody be? Tesla,
Right.
of course, is on the front line. I think they might be the first ones to feel, the impact of what we're seeing out of China. But we're starting to sound like a broken record now with all these cars that we're looking at, right? Every time a new car seems to get posted in China, and we look at the specs and the cost and the whole package, we keep saying, oh, wow, Tesla's in trouble, and all the automakers are in trouble. You mentioned that Farley spent time with the other version, and it kind of shook him to the core, because you could tell just from some of the statements he made that he realized, wow, it's worse than we thought. And we keep saying this, and it's true. I've been to China many times. I haven't been there recently, but I've been there many times. I've driven their cars. And then you see in the comment section, some people say like, oh, do we really want Chinese cars? Well, did we really want Chinese clothing? Did we really want Chinese steel? Did we really want Chinese, electronics? Why is the red line now cars? Well, it was okay to let all of those other items destroy the manufacturing industry in North America. And we accepted them happily because they cost less and the quality was decent. And, now all of a sudden the red line is going to be cars, and we're going to say, no, we'll buy inferior, more expensive vehicles because we don't want to lose that industry also. I think it's, I think it's a fait accompli at this point. It's just a matter of how long do they get held out? What we're seeing here is, a transition, a turning point in the automobile industry. China's here, and they can make cars. They can make high quality cars that seemingly excel in nearly every aspect. Perhaps not. I don't think they've achieved the level of real driving and performance as far as road feel and handling that, say, a Porsche could deliver. And by the way, I have the new electric Macan. Porsche just dropped off at my house, so I'm experiencing that. They just did yesterday, and I haven't really had much time to drive it. But in the short time that I had to drive it, as soon as I start driving, I'm like, yeah, this is a Porsche. The suspension, the road feel. I'm sure the Chinese cars haven't been able to duplicate that yet, but at some point they will. Or does that even go away? We talk about how cars are becoming more of appliance to take us from point A to point B than we had, years ago, where there was such an emotional connection to your vehicle. And maybe this generation of Chinese cars, the cost, everything else they offer, people will sacrifice that, that feel that some of the high performance cars gave, because I still haven't gotten that from any of the Chinese cars that I've driven. Like, I've never gotten in one, driven it, and said, wow, I feel connected to the road, like you do with some of the top of the line performance cars that out of, say, Europe and even US. But anyway, this is just another example, Dom. You look at the specs, what could really, let's say that was here in the US and in Europe today, and it was available in plentiful numbers, and it was priced similarly to a Model Y. What's going to compete with that? What are the other EVs are people going to, say, yeah, I'll buy this one over this one for any reason other than brand loyalty?
True.
It's.
I think to your point earlier, I think it's not just Tesla that needs to be worried about Xiaomi, but Tesla is has been the biggest seller of electric vehicles in China, and they just and Europe. BYD just passed them in Europe actually by just a little bit, but it's sort of a trending. BYD is trending up at a great pace, 169% year-over-year growth, where Tesla is down in Europe 49%, I believe. So it's kind of passing it. So I'm not sure if BYD has to be too worried about Xiaomi right now, except for their higher end brands. They have I can't remember the other BYD brand off the top of my head, but say a Neo or a Xiaopeng or Xpeng, they might be worried about this, because as I was saying, the SU7 sold 258,000 cars in 1 year. Its first year ever in China. It's showed up, and then everybody bought one. Apparently, is that good? And how we know how crossovers in the US are way more popular than the sedans. I'm not sure how rampant SUV fever is in China, but this could be even bigger. I feel than the other one, than the SU7.
Well, and
So,
and it's big until the next one comes out.
Right.
There's going to be, Xiaopeng or Neo, or is only months away from revealing their next vehicle. You see the rate at which we get these new cars, from the traditional OEMs that we're used to. Years pass in between, the launch of a new next generation vehicle that does everything better, that can go farther, can charge faster. But it seems like in China, the same company puts out their next greatest thing 8 months later. It was wait a minute, wasn't it September when we had this groundbreaking vehicle? It's 8 months later, and now it charges 25% faster, goes 25% farther, costs 15% less. The rate at which they make advancements in China is unparalleled. We can't compete with that. And the protectionism of holding, stopping them from coming in, if anything, it harms the other brands. I know it's like tough love. It's if they're not forced to compete with something like this, they'll just lag behind, and then a day will come where they'll be irrelevant. And it's almost like it's good if they're forced to compete with stuff like this, because it'll make them accelerate their own plans to have improvements of their own products.
Right.
If they even can. I don't know. Are the legacy brands that we're all used to such big, bloated organizations that they can't physically move fast enough to compete with what we're seeing from some of these startups? That could be the case. I hope it's not the case, but they just might. Their infrastructure might be so that they can't compete with what the speed that we're seeing from some of these startups.
Right. But to your point, and that's very true. The other automakers in China, they just throw new brands and new models all the time. But the Xiaomi one I just mentioned, I brought up because it's just such dominant performance. The other brands they'll do that, but their sales aren't across the board, except for BYD, not that great.
Yeah.
And there's not only, I think, 3 automakers of all the there's like, I don't know how many automakers there are in China, but a ton, and maybe only 3 or 4 are making money because they have a really competitive. They're in a price war basically for the last 3 or 4 years, and yeah, so things could change. But anyway, we probably spent enough time talking about cars in China because we have cars in our own market that are we can talk about. So let's see. Let me pull this up real quick. It's Miss Martin. Martin's off in the countryside this weekend with the fam.
Yep, taking
So
a
we're
little
kind
time
of a
off,
little
which he
bit jealous.
deserves.
Yeah, taking a well-deserved vacation. Let me just throw this on the screen real quick. So, boom.
Boom.
That's us,
Womp,
right?
womp, womp.
Right? Right? What the reaction. So, okay, from
Go
possibly.
Yeah, it's like,
we
sorry, Dom, I'll let you talk, but it's like going from the latest tech in China
Right.
to this is like, oh, like,
It
all right,
says
this
it
is
all,
what we
right?
get. This is what we get. Like universally panned by like almost every journalist that's driven the vehicles. But anyway, go right ahead.
No, right? And I get the same feeling. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, I want to like it though. I really do. I'm just partial to the Dodge brand and the Charger nameplate especially. And I really like the '60s Chargers, and this is the most reminiscent of that. But man, it's anyway. So
I
let's
think it
go
looks
from the
good
most
though. I'll give it that. I think it looks good.
right.
I like the retro look. If it was I mean, I wish it was a great EV all around.
And
I'd consider getting one because I think it looks cool as hell. But it
right.
seems
And
like they just didn't put it together that well.
right. And I think it could be, but it just needs some work. But we'll get into in a sec. So we're going from the most important EV of the year probably to possibly the least important EV of the year, the 4-door sedan, Dodge Charger Daytona sedan, and it's just launched. So the coupe's version sales haven't exactly set the world on fire. I think it's been like 2,000 or so sold in the first quarter of 2025. Not great. Right.
I think
So
more
it comes in
Fisker
this.
Oceans have sold.
Oh, that's a comparison. Oh my God. So it comes in one powertrain configuration as the as the RT entry version of the Chargers with it comes in right. It comes in one version of the powertrain configuration. There's only a scat pack basically. So the RT entry version of all the Chargers has been put on pause indefinitely because of that slowdown in sales. I think that was just announced this week. So we have this one
Slow
version
down.
of this, and it's the spicy one. It's the spiciest one that they have available now. They have spicier coming down the road, which might fix some of these problems. But so this one has dual motors, puts out 670 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque, big numbers, helping it go 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. Dodge says it can quarter mile in 11.5 seconds. It has it comes with a 93.3 kilowatt hour battery that offers a range of 241 miles, kind of 241 miles from 93.9 kilowatt hours. Just repeating that to let it sink in. It can charge from 20 to 80% in 24 minutes, which, okay. So Tom, have you had a chance to drive one of these?
No, I haven't. I did have the opportunity to, but I had to pass because I had something else going on. So no,
Right.
I haven't driven it, but I have a lot of friends in the industry that have, and I've talked to them off the record and,
Right.
read their articles and, it just seems like they missed the mark in so many places. It's unfortunate. Too bad Kyle couldn't chime in today to talk a little
Right.
bit about, his feelings on this, but I think we all know, where he stands. It's so unfortunate too, because like I said, it's such a cool looking vehicle. They should just bought like a Model S, gliders, like the whole powertrain and everything, and slap this
Right.
body on top of it. Imagine if this had Model S plaid, powertrain, battery pack, and everything. Like
Or
it'd be
Lucid,
the
Lucid
coolest
Air.
car around.
They could have partnered with Lucid and put in like the Lucid Air powertrain underneath
Yeah.
this, which would solve a lot of problems. I think the big thing is, well, one is huge. Okay, it's like even bigger than the the old Chargers, which were already pretty large.
Mhm.
But it's also heavy. I'm not sure. I think it's probably heavier than it really should be.
Yeah.
And it's a 400-volt system. They have an 800 volts version of this coming out eventually with a lot more horsepower, a lot more powerful
Mhm.
motors, and that should solve some of the efficiency issues, especially with charging. But I think what it really needs is the silicon carbide power conversions inside, like
Mm.
for the inverters and things. I think it's losing a lot of efficiency. Right, that's basically the key for it.
Mm.
That I don't know where else you could get range back. Skinnier tires, not really moving the needle. 241 miles is egregiously poor, I feel like, for that size of battery.
Yeah, it is. It's big and heavy and inefficient. I mean, and then you go back to the question that we've asked like out loud to Toyota for a while. Did Toyota really want to make a good BZ4X? Did Stellantis really want to make this a car that everybody? I find it hard to think that the people working on the program, the engineers, didn't want to do their best. But
Right.
then you get this and you say, geez, did they just nerf this? Did they give it like a half-assed effort? Like you don't know. You wonder because they felt so short. You're like, really? Like, is this can't be the best that the Stellantis engineers can do? Yeah,
No, right.
So
I mean, they're probably working. They have a budget. They have to produce a vehicle with this budget, and maybe the numbers don't really work at the scale that
yeah,
they're. Maybe they had to think about taking a loss for their first,
yeah,
so many vehicles, and because you have to scale up that kind of,
yeah,
battery usage, and
mhm,
they're paying, probably top dollar
yeah,
for batteries, where people who already have like GMC's already done all their battery homework and's got
yeah.
cooperation with LG
Mhm.
and plants already up and running, lots of scale, and that's something that Dodge doesn't have.
Yeah, and I think
So
we underestimate sometimes looking from the outside. People, us included, Dom. Even though we're quasi in the industry, we get to talk to people. But I think people that like really aren't in the industry don't or maybe underestimate how painful this transition is to electric vehicles. How costly and how
mhm.
difficult it is to make this transition when they're so used to doing things a certain way and have supplier contracts with other types of suppliers. And it's we've talked about this for a while. There's going to be casualties, and the startups don't have to deal with this. Like even the Chinese brands that came out of nowhere and are just making electric cars, and the Teslas and the Lucids and the Rivians, they have their own challenges. But the legacy brands that have been making combustion vehicles forever, it's a completely different vehicle. I mean, I remember back in the early days with BMW, I was very involved in BMW's e-mobility program. I used to regularly get an opportunity to talk to the top program managers, go to Munich, see the vehicle in development. The i3 is what I'm talking about, years before it was actually ever came to fruition. And I just remember how they spent billions like on the i3. And I think a lot of OEMs are just unwilling to pour that much money into the EV programs when they know, at least in the beginning, they're not going to sell a ton of them. There's even today, there's a limited number of people, a percentage of the overall automobile population that are willing to go BEV. It's going to be a gradual uptick. So, I think sometimes we underestimate just how difficult this is and how painful it is. And we criticize companies like I just criticized Stellantis for putting out, something that maybe is less than what we all hoped it would be. But it's a painful, expensive process to create the first fully engineered, competitive electric vehicle when you've been making combustion vehicles forever. So anyway,
Yeah, I hear you. So let's put that away, and let's talk about something else real quick. Oh, Mike's here in the background, so
Yeah.
maybe we'll bring him in now. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's time to talk the end of
All right.
EV incentives.
Hey, yeah,
All right.
no, it's a grim time here. Hey, man, how y'all
Welcome,
doing?
Mike.
Good to see you, Tom.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for
Mike,
joining us here today.
Oh, I'm a listener. This is fun. I'm happy to be
right on.
here.
Let me introduce you a little bit, Mike. Nice to meet you. Actually, by the way, I've never met you before, so nice to meet you. So I believe you've done a couple of videos with Tom in the past on the State of Charge channel discussing the EV Politics project, which you head, and then the American EV Jobs Alliance. So it'd be great to hear a little bit about those efforts. But we asked you on, I guess, at the last minute at that again. So again, thanks for coming on such short notice. We appreciate that. We asked you here because just yesterday, the House just passed legislation that effectively can kill the $7,500 new EV tax credit if it also gets passed by the Senate and signed by the president, and the $4,000 used EV tax credit. Not only that, the Senate voted to end a waiver that allows California to set emission standards for itself, and there's a dozen other states that have adopted that same or on that same bandwagon with California. So these measures could really slow down EV adoption in the U.S., which already lags behind, China and Europe, the important markets, and potentially make U.S. automakers uncompetitive outside this protectionist bubble that the administration seems to be creating. So yeah.
Other than that,
what do we do with all
tell me
this?
the good news. Yeah, it's been fun. Great to be on. I enjoy listening to the pod, and I used to haunt Tallahassee quite a bit, Tom. So it's good to meet you. I ran Jeb Bush's politics down there when he was governor. With a few other great people that were fun to work with. So yeah, let me give you the little rundown. So there's a guy named Eric Redmond who wrote a great book years ago, I still recommend, called The Dance of Legislation, which is how this stuff actually works. And you're absolutely right. The House took a real chainsaw to any kind of EV tax credit and subsidy. They also whacked the $40,000 credit if you're a municipality trying to switch over from diesel to EV, which is a real gut shot to an emerging industry building a lot of those vehicles, which needs takeoff speed like everybody does in U.S. EV manufacturing. And they slapped this ridiculous $250 per EV tax, which is about 2.25 times what gas cars pay. So. And of course, there's no damage tax for what gasoline does, too, which causes all kinds of problems in the atmosphere. But where's it going from here? Well, the way this stuff works is the House is kind of first at the checkbook, the way our system's set up. So they pass a budget of a place called Ways and Means, the most powerful committee in Congress, figures out the tax code. It goes to the Rules Committee, which is how it gets to the floor for a vote, which is why the party in power really keeps a stranglehold on that Rules Committee. We got a little bit more drama this time because some of the most fiscally conservative Republicans in the so-called Freedom Caucus have some seats on rules. So it's hard to get to the vote without them. So they passed it, is the bottom line. They passed about the most hostile. I mean, the American Petroleum Refiners Association couldn't have wished for a better House bill. Now we do it all over again in the Senate. Senate's a little different. Because in the House, the minority party has no power. I mean, they're spectators. In the Senate, everybody has some power, though the majority has more. So now, in a very tight situation in the Senate, just like the House, we're going to go through the whole thing again. And the Senate tends to think of itself, okay, we're the grown-ups table. Those double nits out in the Congress, they had their fun. Now we're going to put it all right. It's very rare for the Senate to rubber stamp the House. Now, President Trump would like that because their strategy is to pass, quote, one big, beautiful bill, which is very much not the way it's been done in the old days, because you'd have the different lobbies based on economic, the Corn Belt has a different view than the steel folks do, than the, people who care about water infrastructure. But anyway, so we're going to go to the Senate. We're going to see if the Senate wants to play along. Generally, they're aligned. Nobody in the Republican Party wants to cross Donald Trump, despite his sagging poll numbers right now. So then it'll come to what we call conference. And sorry for the long ramble here, but this will probably be August, probably late August. It's always perils of Pauline, last minute, and then there will be the two sides will meet. The Senate will have a bill. We know what the House bill is. They will try to come up with something that everybody can vote yes on. There'd be a lot of high drama. So the question for the EV industry, and we work a lot with the OEMs and other friends of the cause here, is can we get any of this stuff back in? And, what we're doing at the American EV Jobs Alliance, we're about to start a massive text campaign to people who live in places where there are a lot of EV jobs. We got to move this debate to jobs and national security from green, which is polarizing in American politics. In fact, if you're interested, our good listeners, if you go to AmericanEVjobs.org, you will see a site. You can watch a scary movie about the Chinese auto industry. That's what we're texting a couple 100,000 people, national security implications. And then you type in your zip code. Now, this only works if you're in one of the 28 congressional districts that have most of the EV spending, but you see how many local jobs are threatened. Then you push a button, you can send an email for free. We're not charging, we're not trying to make any money here. In fact, we're begging for money from the industry to pay for this. You click the button and you can email your members of Congress and senator, like, what the hell are you doing? So we're ramping up that campaign this week, and this has to be jobs pressure from back home. Yeah, you can see there on the screen we have all these jobs are basically in the industrial Midwest and Atlantic South, and there are a lot of them. And politicians don't want to be job killers. It's easy if you're a Republican politician to be a green car killer because of all the polarization over EVs as green dogma mobiles. But when we talk jobs, and we polled all this with Republican base voters, I'll finish up by saying only a third of Republican voters, and it's not that much higher with Democrats, frankly, know that China is the number one auto producer. A third of Republicans think the U.S. is the number one auto producer. They don't know we're fourth. And another third thinks we're a narrow second to Japan. So we find in polling, the more Republicans understand that China is eating the world auto industry, including ours, they come around to, wait a minute, slow down on this stuff. So that's the bugle we're going to blow. It's an uphill fight in the Senate, but we get to have another fight here. And there are senators behind closed doors say, look, I don't want to lose all these plants. I get the China thing. I just got to survive a world where Donald Trump wants a lot of tax cuts. And if I cross him, I'm screwed. And if I, pay for this EV stuff, which is a lot of money over 10 years, then I got to cut more Medicare, which is Medicaid, which is a worse political problem for me. So these guys are all in the vice, but we're going to be a good porcupine and try to be hard to wrestle here.
Yeah. So how likely do you think it's going to be to get through the Senate? Like these senators from these states, they've got to have a lot of a lot of 165,000 jobs. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, it's actually over 200,000. And you start looking at the supply chain, you can argue even more. I'll tell you, there's a little secret queue in the House legislation. You notice how they do a 1-year fade out if you sold under 200,000 EVs. You wonder, right. Well, where did that come from? Well, I call that the Sistemani rule. There's of the 8 most vulnerable Republican incumbents in the re-elections next year, the Republicans have to win most of those 8 to hold on to the House. Those are really tough districts. Juan Sistemani, who's pretty good on EVs, by the way, happens to represent the Lucid plant, where he's got almost 7,000 jobs in a very tough district. So in the middle of the night when they're writing this thing, like, well, we're going to lose Sistemani. We're wiping out his district. Yeah. Well, I got an idea how many cars they sell a year. Well, all right, we'll put a thing and give them another year to get them through the election year. I mean, that's how raw politics comes into this. So, and look, if it were up to Sistemani, we'd do fine. He's been good. I don't want to bash him, but he's they're trying to help him. And I'll bet the Illinois member who's good on this too, Darren LaHood, you may remember his Republican dad, Ray LaHood's a great guy, was Secretary of Transportation. He's got a Rivian plant there. So, I'll put it, here's a good way to look at it. Of the 8 most vulnerable Republican members of Congress, 4 of them have a ton of EV jobs. And, we're going to go out and squeeze all of them. So you can see how politics are. We're doing a fade in here. We're trying to give him a little air. We need more of that. We need more jobs paying. I think it's possible, instead of the 200,000, they just stall the whole thing for another year. If we make enough jobs paying, I think they may punt one more year, because the way they do congressional math or government math, which if you ran your hardware store math this way, your Tom's Old Restaurant, you'd be out of business in a month. They do everything in 10-year accounting. So if you shove all the cuts into 9 years, you can still claim the same amount of money, and you punt for a year. So, I think there's some wiggle room that 200,000 thing may become everybody. We'll see. And then I would argue, if I were in the room with this stuff, and we're part of the coalition, and we've talked to all the lobbyists, worst case, keep the leasing thing, give up the purchase thing, because just in the interest, more than half of new EVs are leased. And when you lease a new EV, you really create two owners over 6 years. The original lease, and then the vast majority of them then go into the used car market and get sold again. And we know from all the polling we do to help the OEMs sell more EVs, the more people who use EVs, the more they talk them up, the more sales go up. So if I can get two EV owners over 6 years with a lease deal for the category, that's better than a purchase deal. So if I had to take the whack in the negotiation, I would say 1 year phase in, not just for 200,000. And if I had to give something up to give the president a victory, I'd take the 7,500 new car out. I'd keep the lease, and I'd keep the used car 3,500 and give them some savings. And then remember, the odds are probably 4 out of 5 you get a Democratic, not Senate, but House next year's election. So then it's a whole new ball game to renegotiate. So if you can just punt a year, you're in much better shape. And Trump can claim victory, which for Trump, as we all know, is the most important thing.
Right. That's, you have to give them the win somehow, make it look like,
you beat us again, sir. We're gone in a year. Boy, you're tough. What a genius. Never seen anything like it. And I'm a Republican, by the way, but I'm not a big fan of, the way this administration has declared war on American auto manufacturing is unbelievable. It's just
kind of amazing.
Yeah. It's the biggest economic win for China, I think, in the last 20 years. Yeah. We're in the middle of it.
There's undoubtedly this, it's kneecapping the American auto manufacturing at the worst time when it really needed a boost. It's kneecapping it. So this will just accelerate, some of the things that we've talked about here on the podcast before, that, the U.S. auto industry is in a lot of trouble. And, this is the last time to do this. We could have had a renaissance if they went full in on EV and understood this is the technology that everyone's going to be driving in 10 years, but we're going in the opposite direction, and they're going to fall farther behind. And they won't be able to catch up. They might not be able to catch up at this point, but they certainly won't be able to catch up in 4 or 5 years. They're just, it's difficult to watch. It's like that slow motion train wreck, that what's happening, and you're looking at it, and there's nothing you can do.
I think there may be 20 members of Congress who really understand this, because they're not doing their homework. They're looking at cheap applause and, okay, we can go cut taxes on tips or, make a political victory. From a geopolitical point of view, I'll quote my favorite statistic. On the eve of World War II, in the late 1930s, the British Empire made production, which basically the UK plus Canada, 550,000 cars and light trucks. Germany made about 470,000 cars and light trucks. France, about 400,000. In the year before Pearl Harbor, the United States made 4.7 million cars and light trucks. Industrial base is vital for national security. And I had the OEM of a big famous auto company say, this is about a year ago, if we don't compete in EVs and we can't stay worldwide viable, we're just going to be niche producers here. And when the Pentagon calls me up and says we need 5,000 tanks, I'm going to tell them, call Shanghai. I can't do it. I don't have the plants. So, this is so serious and so important. Now, look, I'm a right winger. I don't like subsidies, but in the short term, we're competing against a country with 100 car companies and only 2 of which are profitable. So, how would you like to be in business with the rich kid across the street who's not only really smart, but doesn't have to make a profit? So you got to have great products and hope over time, and I believe this is true, a lot of those companies will fall off, leaving a couple of world beaters like BYD and a few more that climb to the top of that brutally competitive market. And so we have to subsidize our home market to get our producers and the NATO allies who produce here. number one exporting plant in America is from BMW. That plant sends more car overseas than any other plant here, and that's good. South Carolina. You know, I'm not worried about our allies. China is not an ally.
Right.
And shift over a minute to the road tax, the EV road tax, the $250. I mean, that's punitive. There's nothing reasonable about that. That is literally the administration saying we're going to not only are we not going to give you any money anymore for no incentives, but we're going to, if you want an EV, we're going to punish you. You're going to be punished. And here in New Jersey, there's states that already have road tax, and that's how gasoline tax works. Also, there's a federal tax, and then states have tax on top of it. The federal tax, I think, is like 18.4 cents or something like that. The federal gasoline tax, it hasn't been raised since '73, I think, because like no politician wants to be the one that sponsors a bill to raise gasoline tax, but it does get raised in the states. And so here in New Jersey, this just started last year. We have a annual tax. It started with $250 a year. This year it's $260. Next year it's $270. Then $280. I think it goes up to $290 a year.
Right.
So I own 4 EVs. Now I'm not the average person. I do this for work and so forth, and I'm very lucky that I can afford four cars in the household. But so I'll be paying $1,000 federal tax, and like almost $1,100 in state tax a year. Over $2,000 a year, $2,200 or something like that, $2,100 a year in road tax. And I only drive about 25,000 miles a year with all 4 vehicles.
Right.
So I did rough math, and I could be wrong. I'm going to do more complex. It's about $3 a gallon in the equivalent of $3 a gallon in tax, not the gas price. If I were to have a car that got 30 miles per gallon, like if I owned one Honda Accord, it would be the equivalent of me paying $3 a gallon in tax. Yeah. So like
it's unbelievable. I call it the Chairman Z tax. They're actually incentivizing you to get out of an EV.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they have this bullshit argument. Sorry, family podcast, but where EVs are heavier. It's not material at all. It's trucks that do all. Ask any engineer. It's completely ridiculous. It's, as you say, it's punitive. It's like, they're trying to. Here's their problem. The president went out and promised about 5 to 6 trillion in tax cuts over 10 years because he likes the sound of applause. Now, Wall Street's shaky because they're like, how the hell are you going to pay for all this? Well, they don't have the money. So they're going and scraping everything they can out of the budget. We're still going to add $2 trillion to the deficit with all this stuff. So right now, about out of every 8 federal dollars, 1 goes to paying interest on the debt. After this, we'll be going to 1 out of 6. And it keeps growing. Our budget is bigger than our GDP. We're literally spending a higher percentage of GDP now than we were during World War II, when we kind of had a problem that was expensive. So, it's crazy economics, but they're desperate for revenue. So any revenue they get that punishes a group that the Republican polls think their voters are happy punishing, left-wingers who drive EVs, they immediately go for it. There's no principle to any of this. Now, I will say, we poll this a lot. The division over EVs is shrinking. The Republican numbers are going up. Now, part of that might be Elon and President Trump selling some Teslas on the White House lawn a few months ago. But a lot of it is we asked this question, do you have friends or relatives who own it or drive an EV? If you say yes, and I don't care if you're a Bernie liberal or a hardcore Trump Republican, you rate EVs a lot higher in every category. So EVs, they spread on themselves. California is a good example. We're up to almost 25% here. We're a huge win. People tell me, the Republicans are going after CARB. Yeah, and the problem was CARB was going to hit the rocks here anyway because the market wasn't going to grow that fast. But I tell my California environmental friends, it's okay. We're Europe here in California. We're the biggest auto market in America by far, where everything happens first in U.S. marketing. And we're up to 25%, and the CARB limits didn't drive any of that. We don't price special here. There aren't special, incentives. So, we need to mend, not end carb. And this fight we're having is kind of silly right now. We should be happy where we are and know that California can get to 30% on its own. If there's a little carb nudge, a $20,000 fine per car if we don't hit the standards, which we're not going to hit, is crazy. But if we had a $1,500 fine that went into a charging infrastructure fund, the autos could live with that. And it would help us fix, we still haven't electrified or commissioned an EV station in California, the biggest, best auto market for EVs in the country. So we're kind of in our own way out here. But I'm not as worried about the carb thing, which has become almost more symbolic than reality. I want to pour kerosene on the California EV fire that's already growing. 25%,
Right.
it's pretty amazing. And we can get to 30 or 40 here on market power, I think, by 33, 34, which is tremendous. And it only keeps growing. The more people who drive EVs, the more people who like them and talk them up, the more we sell. And the governor is making, and I'm going to go meet with him at his request on this stuff. He is talking about having some kind of California subsidy to make up for the whack that may come at the end of August from the feds when this thing finally lands. But I'm telling them, get level 2 charger into multifamily. That's our biggest real problem here.
Mhm.
A lot of apartments, not a lot
Yes.
of ability to charge. If you're an Uber driver, here's a good example, and you're driving full time, you're probably in a subsidized EV in California. And they're part of that mandate, though that may get revised. You're spending 90 minutes to 2 hours in a 10 to 11 hour shift where you're charging, and you're not making any money. And if your free charging is over, and Tom, you've made good points about this, people taking them to 100%. You could be paying 50 cents a kilowatt. You charge overnight in an apartment building, and 65+% are in apartments at 20 cents a kilowatt hour. It's so much more effective. And for those people, if you're one of those drivers, it makes another $500 to $700 a month in income for you. So it's a big triple win. So we're really looking at that. We got a little coalition we're starting here with some labor, some green, some apartment people saying we can electrify level 2 35 apartment spaces for the cost of 1 2 nozzle highway dispenser. So let's do a little of that math here. And because highway charging here is now pretty good. It's when you live in a city and you can't put it in your condo building or a thing, then you're down at the Walmart in a big line. And that's all getting better too. And you guys cover it brilliantly. But level 2 could really be, we desperately need about 100,000 units in apartments here.
Absolutely do. And there's some good choices coming to the market now, Mike, that are specifically designed for level 2 and to reduce the cost and with load sharing intelligence. So, I think we have the opportunity for that to accelerate now, but you can't help but think that the potential for that to accelerate quickly is going to be slowed by the current state of affairs that we have here, because, for the person that's on a budget, and everybody's on a budget, but they don't have a big budget and they live in a multifamily and they're weighing the costs of the EV with the lease. They don't get that tax credit anymore. Okay, we knew that was going to go away eventually. I had always said that, and I think the current tax bill had it sunsetting in like 2032. But I had always said that by the end of this decade, that subsidy should go away. That we won't need it. But this is a little premature to me. I would be happy if we could just keep that around for about 3 more years. I think at that point we're not going to need it too much, or start phasing it out. You want to kill it. Okay, 7,500 through this year, 5,000 next year, 3,000 the following year, 2,000 the following year, then it's gone.
And let the auto guys plan.
Do something reasonable.
Yeah,
exactly.
The industry's problem is every 3 minutes they're like, oh, now it's illegal to build a car in Connecticut. I'm mad at the governor. That stuff. And I had an auto exec tell me he thinks we can stand up a new auto assembly plant in a year. Try 7. And by the time we even break ground, he'll be gone, and the next guy will be saying, free trade, and so it's just, we're killing them. It's unbelievable. But you're right, Tom. It should be a phase out. It should be locked in. We need about 3 to 4 years. There's exciting stuff going on. This Ford Skunk Works is very exciting.
Yeah.
You know, it's so secret, Farley can't even get in there, but I have some idea about it. And it's impressive. That Hyundai Meta plant, you walk in there, it's like you want the first time in my life, and I grew up around auto plants in Detroit. I'd love to work in one. I mean, it is the most worker friendly. It's the future of manufacturing. So there's no doubt we can win at this. We just need a crutch against the Chinese who are playing by their rules, which are conquest with no interest in making money till everybody else is dead. So a little subsidy to protect a huge, important, you know, employer and national security asset, of course. You know, this is a no-brainer. You don't do this, great, we have to buy 25 more aircraft carriers because, you know, we're in this defense race, and that's not more expensive than auto subsidies. We're talking $20 billion a year for 10 years, peanuts in government spend for a huge benefit. That also creates income tax when money comes back. That's the other thing about, you know, when you use government spending to create more sales, there is offsetting revenue. Not enough for it to be a good idea long term, but it's not as expensive as it looks.
So
anyway,
but
other than that, we're doing great.
Right. So the CARB component that the Senate is trying to get rid of or pass a bill yesterday about. Well, do you think that will hold up in the courts?
You know, I don't know. The real secret is that the auto companies. Remember, in 26, we have an open governor's race here, and the governor appoints the CARB board. So, I mean, I'm advising one of the major candidates who's looking at running for governor in my political consultant life. And there are a couple of left-wing lunatics running. It's California, but most of the grown-ups running for governor, the auto companies and the CARB staff would like turn off the DC performative politics. Let's get in a room and let's lighten up CARB a little so we can bring it in for a huge win landing, because California's got the best EV penetration sale and the biggest market in raw units in the country. So we're a couple of grown-up conversations away from landing this, that we soften and extend the standards a little, and the autos will be happy and they can plan the goals, you know, but unfortunately, Washington's getting in the way of the grown-up discussion by doing this applause stuff. So we will see. I think, remember also, California is a state with a terrible history of smog, childhood asthma, all kinds of problems. So the feds, if it does get tied up in court, and even if CARB goes away, the legislature here can put a ballot measure up with a softer version of CARB, or a tax on ICE vehicles. You know, you got to get something that'll pass long term. There are a lot of ways the state can fight back. So in this one, and I'm for changing CARB. I think CARB as present is completely unworkable, but there were good deals to be had. I mean, can you imagine if you lighten the standards a little and said, hey, car companies, there's no more $20,000 fine if you sell an ICE car. There's now a $2,000 fine. And that $2,000 is earmarked to installing apartment charging. So for every ICE car you sell, you got to build, you know, depending on the install, half of a level 2 charger, and those prices are going down. With a flatter curve, you're going to have all these win-wins. I mean, the great irony to this, the most profitable business Elon Musk has is not Starlink, it's not SpaceX, it's not really Tesla, it's selling other companies emission credits, billions and billions and billions of dollars. So these CARB standards, or the threat of them, some of this EPA has made Elon rich. It's his money tree. So I'd like to not have those. I don't like the paying Tesla when you don't hit a standard. If you don't hit a standard, and we can adjust the standards, pay infrastructure funds to build more EV charging, not Elon Musk. So anyway, there's a better thing in the offing. This will create pressure for it. It may not be CARB. And it's all going to get litigated in the 26 governor's race. That's where this is really going to land. I think the courts will slow it down. I don't know which way it'll turn out. I've heard good arguments each way. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, that's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Well, go buy an EV. We still have a couple months left. And you see it in the sales. Other than Tesla, the iron is moving. But we'll see. It's not over yet. And what I tell everybody is, I'm going to plug the website again. Send the email. Now, you may enter in your zip code and not see jobs because you're not one of the 28. We're adding more districts. The 28 Republican districts are where like the bulk of the EV spending is. But you could type in your own email in the app too. You don't have to use our language. But do that, and when in doubt, call your congressman's local office back home. A nice person will answer, and just leave a message. I'm disappointed in the vote, and I hope in reconciliation takes another look. I'm a proud EV driver, or these are important. They're good for our area. And leave a message. They'll be very polite, and they count them. And then the guy, how are we doing? Well, we had 47 calls not happy with this. 47, because the first rule of politics, do thy own political ass be true. And if they feel at home trouble, that helps. That helps. So do it.
So specifically, if any of the followers live in the states you see up there on the screen, take 5 minutes and go to Mike's website and click through. It makes it very easy for you to send an email to say, hey, look, I'm not happy with what you're doing here. And let your voice be heard.
So this is the website we need to go to, AmericanEVjobs.org.
Yes, that is the what we call an activation site. You can watch our 40-second China movie, which tests really well with the MAGA Republican world, because they have no idea about any of this. Literally, what's happening today is 30,000 people in a couple of those districts are getting a text. You click a button, your whole screen on your smartphone's taken over. You see the ad, and then you click again, and you go to the site, a lot of this information, and you can do a pass through. And what's nice is when you click through, we know you did. And then, you go in our list to get updates and stuff like that. So easy, it's free, and they got to hear from you, because right now this is a free vote for a Republican member of Congress. I've been yelling at the industry for a long time that we have to mobilize or we're going to get rolled. Well, we didn't mobilize, and now we're getting rolled, but we do have a couple months here to slug this thing out. And, we're going to the industry for funding for this. We're having some good meetings. So, we're going to go down slugging. And I think we might be able to get a 1-year punt.
Well, that'd be great if we can, Mike. And we really appreciate, I know I personally appreciate your efforts. It's why we asked you to come on. You and I have done some collaborations before, spent some time hanging out with you at the EV Charging Summit in Las Vegas a couple months ago.
I'm still, the cops are still looking for us, Tom. We got out of town okay. It was a close call there, but that was fun. And you're a hero in this, both of you guys. So keep it up.
Well, you're the hero now. You're doing the work. I mean, we come on here and just talk EVs and have fun. You're actually trying to affect change. You're spending your own money, your own time. You're not making money doing this. Mike's it's costing Mike money to do this, but you're generally trying to help the industry.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Thank you for this. Is yeoman's work what you're doing here, and we appreciate your efforts.
My one of my business partners like, you're such an idiot. Okay with the contributions, but some of these companies have hired you as a consultant on the marketing side, and you're literally taking your consulting money. And what went wrong with you, Murphy? You're a political mercenary, So I promised my wife I'll snap out of it this year and keep the consulting stuff. But look, Tom, you've been a leader in this thing forever. Dom, I followed you. We're all doing good work, and it's not only whether or not you like electric cars or not, it is in the American national interest. That's the thing to remember. You ask any general or admiral about this, and they'll say, we need manufacturing muscle, and we need battery tech. You want to knock down a drone? You don't do it with a gasoline-powered vehicle. You do it with a battery-powered RF device. You need good batteries. So, for people who are involved and love the cars, even if you don't like the subsidies, take them for 3 years to get us in the hunt. And then I'll probably be with you on a strong fade out. But right now, it's pretty binary choice. So thank you, guys. I love listening.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it, Mike. You're always welcome here. If you ever have something interesting to say, or you just want to, maybe in a couple months, you want to remind people to get out there and contact the representatives, you're welcome back on.
Well, thank you. Yeah, maybe we'll do a little war rally in early August when this thing starts to crescendo.
Great.
So,
great.
All right. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work.
Mike.
See you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Okay. Oops. Here we go. And
look who we have waiting in the hole, Mr. Jordan.
Jordan, how you doing?
Fresh in. I'm good. I'm fresh in from Silicon Valley right here. The OG.
Yum.
iMac.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
This is the iMac
Max,
from 1998.
Yeah.
This is
remember the Macs, how they looked?
Right. It's been a while. Yeah. I didn't get that at all. I don't know if you caught our last little conversation there, but you're out in
Yeah.
California now, and I think you might be moving out there, right?
Well, I'd love to. I'm just living out in San Diego this month, so
Okay.
just kind of house sitting for family, testing the waters. I mean, I already know I love the
Okay.
waters. It's just Colorado's a bit cheaper and still beautiful.
Yeah.
San
The
Diego's
San
like a
Diego
part of
area, though, that
California,
whole
man,
area.
but it's like that's pretty nice. Just
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
hard to beat.
That San
Right.
Diego
Unless-
area is
Unless you like
fantastic.
winters. Unless
Right.
you like, trudging through the snow. But
yeah,
we have you on today to talk about. So you've done a few different things recently that we wanted to talk about real quick. One is the Cadillac Vistic. Let me see if I can find you in my notes. Here you are. So I believe you made a first look video about the Cadillac Vistic before, and I think maybe you even talked to us about it here on the show. But now I think you've driven it, and that you have a video up on the Out of Spec Reviews channel. And the title of it suggests that you like it even more now. I think you call it "Dang, this is nice." My Cadillac Vistic Premium Luxury first experience. Yeah.
Right. I think we have pretty good options now if you're a 3-row EV enthusiast. Not a ton of options, but I still think they're pretty good. And the Vistic actually is probably not even my top 3 in that category, but it's still very nice. So I think if you are a GM enthusiast, a Cadillac enthusiast, and you don't want to spring for that, Escalade IQ that is very, very, very high of the price tag, relatively speaking, Vistic is, I think, pretty nice. Properly toted as the baby Escalade. So I came away pretty happy with power. I think range is enough. Someone was asking about that. Range is plenty for most people. Charging is also decent. It is essentially Lyric, same platform, wheelbase, motors, battery, just a bit more on top. So you have a bit, a third row that's actually surprisingly adult friendly, maybe is a tough word, but adult capable. And then, the third row, or storage behind the third row. Their infotainment is pretty decent. And this thing notably introduces, lane centering without requiring the pre-mapped road, which I'm always a vocal proponent of not requiring pre-mapped roads. I get having
Right.
more features on pre-mapped roads, hands-free driving, like I kind of get that more. But having hands-on lane centering in the really any normal lane marked road is a game changer in my opinion. So this brings to light new ADAS functions that are coming on all future lineup models. And this also is adds to the Dolby Atmos rollout that Cadillac is working on, which by next year they'll have every single vehicle with Dolby Atmos in their sound system, which as an audio enthusiast is music to my ears.
No puns intended.
Right, but
Right
you
on.
still have, some of the quirks like a giant frontal area with no front trunk, which, their sort of excuse is that they did move other components that would normally maybe be further back up to the front to make more room in the back. But then, I don't know, you have Gravity, which also has even more storage space than this in the back,
Right.
and then still has a frunk. So I don't know if I buy that excuse. When you open the hood, it does look like it wasn't completely optimized. But I don't know. There are plenty of people who argue the frunk is not necessary. And we don't have frunks on every single vehicle anyways. So
Right.
it's always interesting to me when that's a buying decision or a huge component of buying decision. But I think this thing looks good. I think this looks better than the Escalade IQ personally. Maybe not the IQ L but I just like the boxiness of, Escalade-ish vehicles. And so
Sure.
this feels more boxy, a bit more, I don't know, stately than the Escalade IQ, in my opinion. But I don't love the little strakes on the furthest back window, I guess, behind the sort of pseudo C-pillar. That's the
Right.
only,
Those right there.
yeah, which they carry over from the optic. It's meant to be an interesting design decision. I think it just impedes third passenger vision. I've sitting back there, I don't find them beneficial. It adds an interesting light flare inside, but that's not really what I'm looking for. But that being said, look above Timon's head in this video for those watching, and
Yeah.
they include third row glass above you as standard, which I really, really appreciate, because a lot of third rows you get back there. If you do climb back there as an adult, which it's usually tight in general, you feel like you're in a cave, while as the front 4 passengers feel much happier with their glass roof. So this is kind of cool that they didn't really forget about the third row. Third row seats have the same treatment as the front seats as far as finishing, no heated or ventilated, which also is a bit disappointing, but you still get cup holders, powerful USB ports, 40 watts, I think, which is pretty decent. And the glass roof and sound system extends back there. It feels like the third row wasn't forgotten.
What's the sticker on this?
So it starts around 78, basically 80, and goes up to about 100 on the dot. So you have a $20,000 range. It is expensive. I mean, that's
R1S territory.
That's R1S territory.
Lucid gravity territory.
It's lucid gravity, entry-level lucid gravity territory at the moment, anyways. In the future they'll have an $80,000 one, perhaps, but not now. But you're looking at base lucid gravity versus maxed out this. But then you can play the argument on the other end of the spectrum and play base Vistic versus maxed out EV9. And so you kind of, it's cool that we have that striation of anywhere from $55,000 to $155,000 3-row electric SUVs. So at least there are a huge variety of price points, let alone the used market with EV9s now. They've been out for a bit, and R1Ss, of course. But it is kind of
Hyundai 7 now too.
Yeah, well, Ioniq 9. So pick your battles, I guess, because there are plenty of reasons to buy this. And if you are a GM enthusiast, you like the software experience, the built-in Android automotive. There's lots of reasons to like this, but it is hard to swallow. The 20 or I guess $10,000 to $15,000 jump to the upper trims of this. That's what gets you the rear wheel steering, the air suspension that a lot of people like to have, and this was. That's just a lot of money to make that jump.
If you don't need that third row, though, you could go Cadillac Lyric and really get some of those features, though, right?
Yes.
For similar pricing, probably. It's
not rear wheel steering on that.
No.
But so this was impressively tight, but also not dramatic rear wheel steering. 3.5 degrees is not huge, but it is noticeable. So it's a good option. Like, I came away pretty happy. The sound system really is really, really, really good. Although I feel like I would give a slight edge to, EX90 sound system. If you're buying one for that, I mean, we've been spending some time with the EX90 out in Colorado. Kyle and Scott and Colton have, and that thing is just, I personally like that car more, even though this car might be objectively better in a few ways. Really
interesting. I think a lot of it comes down for style. Like, cars are like emotional purchases. So some designs just resonate with some people, stronger than other designs, and everyone's going to maybe put performance slightly ahead of design in their buying decision tree or whatever. But yeah, I'm not really worried too much about where Cadillac is right now. I saw the Lyric going down the road the other day, and I'm just, man, that thing looks so good. It's like it's grown into itself, basically. I still like Cadillac's design language a lot. I did an interview over in the Out of Spec Bits channel with one of the design managers of this car, Hoon Kim. He's awesome, and I think they do good things with design. I told him I personally would love an electric XLR, but I don't think anyone's going to buy that, so I understand why they wouldn't. But I think Cadillac has a lot going for them. But that being said, this is also a vehicle launching in 2025. This is a 2026 model year. Doesn't have NACS, and it also can't charge it can't even hit 200 kilowatts. So it's really not class leading in a few different ways. And I would argue not even up to class in those specific ways, but those are specificities that not everyone cares about. If you're not road tripping your thing, a lot of people are going to have this as a around town car. Doesn't really matter. You can spec an 80 amp onboard charger, but I don't know if you really need to, because this only has a 100 kilowatt hour battery. It's not like you have a 200 plus kilowatt hour 24 module pack that you're trying to charge overnight. I don't think they really need more than the 48 amp charger this comes with. Yeah, it's a mystery to me. GM's got it so much right, but their battery, their charging is just leaves something to be desired, and I don't know why that is. But I'd like to. It's so frustrating, basically.
Well, the
Right.
pack
You've done
voltage
so
is so
much,
low.
right?
The pack voltage is so low that they've got to pull 500 amps to get anything decent, and the pack can't hold that max current for more than 10 minutes or so. So that's what you get. But what Jordan mentioned earlier, I think sometimes we maybe overestimate the importance of brutally fast DC fast charging. Even though later on in the podcast today we're going to talk specifically about brutally fast DC fast charging that I'm going to talk about in maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But so for so many people, particularly let's say Cadillac owners, it's a luxury brand, it's a premium brand, it's a high cost vehicle, it's an $80,000, $90,000 vehicle. A vast majority of these owners that buy these live in private residences. They don't live in a little apartment somewhere. If you're buying $100,000 practically vehicle, you probably own a home. And if you don't, if you're renting a little apartment, you're spending $100,000 on a car. I think you need to perhaps shift your priorities, but that's for you and your budgetary concerns to figure out. But if you have the ability to charge at home, the DC fast charge speed really is a low priority as far as I'm concerned, because unless you frequently drive very long distances, because particularly here on the East Coast, I know the coasts are a little bit different than Middle America. If you have got a 300 plus mile EV and you can charge at home, very few people need to use public infrastructure more than once every month or two. And if you're at a DC fast charger 15 minutes longer because your EV charges slower than, say, top of class EV charging, for let's say a competitor to this vehicle, what difference does it make? If, once every 2 months, you got to wait an extra 15 minutes. So I think the crazy thing about this is I think almost the lower cost EVs, it's more important for them to charge brutally quick, fast, because I think a lot of people that buy the less expensive vehicles are less likely to have home charging, live in apartments, multifamily dwellings. They're the people that are going to rely primarily on DC fast charging. Maybe they'll follow the gasoline model and once a week they'll go get fuel. And they don't want to sit there for 50 minutes to get to 80, 85% from a low state of charge. So unfortunately, I think the less expensive vehicles, even the ones with the lower range, it's more important for those vehicles to charge really quickly than it is for the $100,000, vehicles and that's what we're seeing getting the best charging these days. So
I would agree. I think they assume a lot of people have home charging. I mean, even the EVSE that's included with the car, I think is kind of the generic GM. I think it's 32, maybe 40 amps. So it's not even the 48 amp that the car could use. With the NEMA 1450 connector. So it's like they don't even supply the quote unquote really beefy right unit that you could use for this. So it's clearly like an emergency EVSE that you can throw in the trunk. Not sure if it's optional or not, but yeah, I think Nebula's right, 32 amp.
Yeah.
But some of my issues I think are just not really blatant issues. It's not my favorite software suite. You still can't see state of charge. You have to, ask Google, which I think is kind of absolutely silly. And there's just a few things in the software that I feel silly. Even the climate control screen, I've never really liked that. It's okay, but if it's in the screen, it has to be a really, really, really responsive screen with optimized software, which this is not. So it's a little bit buggy and laggy, and that's probably something they could work out, just optimizing the code on the back end. But they're clearly perhaps benchmarking the Lucid Gravity in that regard. But then something not enough people are talking about is the fact that this is really bringing the flagship augmented reality head-up display. Head-up display. It's singular head to the driver. And I think that's pretty interesting, but it's also not quite as good as Mercedes or Lucid. Seeing what the Lucid Gravity is going to be doing with their augmented reality is really awesome. Although I have yet to see that fully functioning. So maybe that is just really cool demos that seem nice, but then they're not good in person. I don't know yet, but trying this one out, it wasn't really that great. I think it was more of a gimmick than anything. So I don't know if I would spring for the high trims for the augmented reality component.
Right. It is nice to have a vehicle with a heads-up display, though. The Mercedes version of that is really nice.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like having it. Of course, I think for a good amount of things Tesla does right with software, I think having a minimalist heads-up display would be awesome, and I still don't know why they didn't do that. VinFast has like the Tesla-esque screen on the side, but then still a head-up display, but no driver gauge. I think that's kind of cool. I don't necessarily need a driver gauge, although I have been living with an old Model S for a bit in San Diego, and I'm like, it is kind of nice having the driver display. I'm not going to lie. So,
Right on. So, I guess we can. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about the Vistic.
no, pretty much it. I mean, if you like GM, you're going to love the Vistic.
All right. So the other thing that you've been doing recently, I don't think you have a video on this out yet, right? But you spent some time with the folks at Tello. Looking
Yes,
at
the video
their...
actually just dropped 20 minutes ago.
awesome.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I did get to go to Tello yesterday and see the offices and where they're working on the prototypes, and yeah, super cool team, fun team, small team. I enjoy meeting really small companies like this because everyone seems to be intimately invested in a way. I mean, I know they'll have to ramp up the team size to really get these into production. So that's kind of the big question surrounding the small three, the little three, Tello, Aptera, and Slate, is what's the reality of production? What's the ramp up strategy? Tello is trying to take it a bit differently, I guess, with not trying to get factory and tooling and stuff to ramp up huge amounts of production right off the bat. They're looking at a very gradual, slow growth strategy, making the first few hundred essentially by hand. I believe using Aria, who builds concept cars for manufacturers. They also build the Resvani tank thing. So they do have contract manufacturing in mind, at least until they get to medium to large scale production. So everyone's kind of playing that guessing game of, is this actually going to come out? And I don't know if I have doubts that it will come out. It's just like, will it actually ramp up? It's getting over that big hurdle right there that I'm not too positive on, but I guess I'm optimistic.
Right. And you're here with the co-founder.
Yeah, so that's something that also gives me some of that optimism, is like they have really, I'd say, legacy people involved. Jason here that I'm talking to, Jason Marks, he's worked with other, he just says electric truck companies. So we kind of know what that means. He's big into ADAS and technology and safety. So, a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, how is it safe? Well, he is safety super nerd. So he knows how
Right.
and what types of things can be homologated, and how to make it safe without needing, you don't actually need a huge frontal area, as he points out in many different interviews. So he's got a lot of expertise. Forrest is the CTO. He comes from, he was employee like number 30 at Tesla, and he helped develop the battery in the Roadster, saw Roadster production, that early stuff kind of ramping a bit. He also invented PlugShare. So he knows charging, understands maybe how that should be implemented. So, this truck has a full suite of software. A lot of people are playing the Tello versus Slate game. They are definitely quite different. This does have, they're looking at hopefully having a good sound system, a full software suite with interesting visuals, UI, UX. I actually see the design. It doesn't look like a Firefly that much in the car in China by NIO, but there are similarities, having the trio headlight thing on either side. And then the interior vibe feels like Firefly. The premium feeling cloth feels like Firefly. Even the UI a little bit has some of those minimalist Firefly vibes to it, which I appreciate. Obviously, this didn't have functioning software. There's a lot of things not fully functioning on this prototype, but it was still a dual motor prototype. So it was still ridiculously fast and hilarious. And, anyone can build a working prototype, so it doesn't really tell us whether this is going to truly succeed. But I went into this having no idea what I'm going to get my hands on, and I thought it was pretty fun.
So I was going to ask you if you drove it, and it looks like maybe you did.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did
Wow.
drive it,
I got a ride.
ripped it as they say. I got to do a launch and stuff, which this has detuned motors. It doesn't have the final battery pack. So,
Right.
I drove it more in the sense of not testing vehicle dynamics, like
Right.
me evaluating throttle response and stuff wouldn't do much with this, but they're have this development mule to kind of test and work on calibrating the motors, calibrating regen. This didn't even have one pedal drive implemented yet, but that's something they're working on and trying to evaluate what people want. Maybe having one pedal drive off versus on, which some people, are annoyed when cars force you into one way or to the other. So giving options, giving regen levels of options, kind of like what you'd see with GM and others. And then also this was more just me figuring out the footprint of the truck.
Right.
Sitting this close to the front, this close to the wheels, trying the turning circle, just figuring out how a small truck drives. This is 5 inches shorter than my Miata, which
Right.
still blows my mind.
Right.
So
And you
it's-
can put
it's-
4 people and their guitar in there, which,
Right,
you
yeah.
know, 2
You could
people and a
squeeze-
guitar, we found out is difficult in your Miata.
Right. You've tried that.
It's like Mini
it's-
Cooper size, right? Isn't it the
Yeah,
size of a
yeah.
Mini Cooper?
So it's the exact
footprint
same
as Mini
length.
Cooper.
It's the exact same length as a 2-door Mini Cooper with an asterisk, because actually the new Mini Cooper got a tiny bit bigger, so now it's a little bit smaller than a Mini Cooper.
Right.
So yeah, it's super functional, but no frunk on this. They did introduce a gear tunnel, which they're calling a monster tunnel, which is smaller than Rivian's tunnel, but still provides lockable storage. You can get a tonneau cover. They're actually partnering with Aptera on solar panels, so that further bleeds into the question of, okay, what's the future of Tela, but also what's the future of Aptera? But I thought that was pretty interesting. Having 400 watts of solar on this thing could help alleviate some of the subtle drain of things like whatever they do with their version of Sentry mode, climate, cabin overheat protection, those kind of things that have a little bit of draw. I'm intrigued by having a bit of solar on a car just to counteract that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So this car, the powertrain is not super important right now. I mean, it's going to be super beefy and quick and everything, which is I think is great. But really, what's important is the packaging. That's like the thing, because you can fit like a 4x8 sheet of plywood in there. But how does that impact the driver feel? Like when I sat behind the wheel, I didn't drive it, but I sat behind the wheel, and I felt a little bit uncomfortably close to the windshield. But I don't know if did you feel, I felt like they just stretch it like 3 inches longer. It would give them that much more absorption up front for crashes if they put the 3 inches on the front, and it would just, I don't know. I think I would feel more comfortable, but I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing. What do you think?
Well, you are definitely further forward, and it is funny. Anyone who parks this thing pulling up to something, it's hilarious to get out and realize how much space you still have in the front, because we're all conditioned for some amount of hood. So that's always really funny. I forget they had a term for that, but I didn't really feel like that. I mean, I did have the seat further back for myself, which would then make the rear passenger really pretty cramped. So it's barely a 4 adult car. They say 5, but honestly, I feel like they should have just pitched it as 4 seats, and maybe the third middle seat in the back as like, I guess, an emergency kids seat type of thing. Like if you really have to squeeze someone in, you can. But I don't know if that was necessarily exactly. But also I think, yeah, all these truck companies are obsessed with talking about the plywood, which I do understand to an extent, but
Right.
to put 4x8 sheets of plywood in this, you lose the back seats, and you also have to have the front seats moved really far forward, like uncomfortably so if you're decent adult height. So it is possible, but most people would just probably leave the tailgate down, have the front seats as far back as you want, and then just have some way to strap the plywood in with a tailgate. It wouldn't overhang. It would still be within the tailgate. That's 21-inch tailgate.
Right.
So that would make up for that space. So
They could put one of those little trick tailgate, the end of the tailgate, I believe forward maybe, or somebody has like a tailgate with a little thing that flips up on the end that kind of holds stuff in
Yeah,
place.
the GM that flips up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right at the very
yeah.
end.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We'll see.
So you mentioned earlier the Slate or Tello game. Do you have in your mind? Do you think they compare? Is that even a fair comparison to make?
Not really. I feel like they're completely different. I mean, it's almost like comparing a compact SUV to a three-row SUV. Like they're both technically SUVs, but totally different pricing, different vibe. I mean, Slate appears to a lot of people like a cheaper second car, having only
Mm,
two doors, two seats, having so many amenities stripped away from it. Whereas this really has all the technicality of what you'd find if you go bought, a CUV of some sort. Just instead of big, space behind the second row, it's a bed behind the second row. It's almost an alt version of a CUV. I mean, kind of you thinking, if you ask me. So I think it's more expensive because it's going to have considerable power. Honestly, more power than it needs, but that seems like what people like these days. And also considerably more range than a Slate. I mean, the small range of this will have more range than the bigger range of Slate.
hmm
And yeah, I don't know. The totally different buyers, in my opinion. They look totally different. So some people that hate one might love the other, or vice versa. So I don't know. They do seem different in that regard. And Aptera is kind of the same situation where it's a two-door, two-seater. And a lot of people
Mm,
just immediately write that off. They don't
right.
see that as a car they could live with. They see it as a second car for perhaps just commuting or who knows. So this is truly being pitched as the thing that could be your only car, but I'm not sure. I could go either way on that argument. I could see people make this their only car and be fine with it, but I also think some people would, miss having a frunk in a truck because that's a big deal. Tom with the Lightning having all that frunk space to have lockable storage is huge, and you don't really get this in here. You have the gear tunnel thing, but it's not the biggest opening. It's not super easy to like access all the stuff in there. So that's not quite the same experience.
Right on. All right. Let's leave that for now. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And before we go, though, I wanted to bring up Tom's video that he's done a great video just recently. Here it is. Tom.
And Jordan has a appearance in this video.
Oh, really?
Jordan has a cameo. Yeah,
Wait, which
you might
video
not
is this?
even you might not even realize it.
Okay.
This,
So
the people have noted in the comment section too. Like I see Jordan.
there's your video. So basically, what you did, you're comparing the charging of the two fastest charging vehicles available in the US. See, I believe you said I compared the Porsche Taycan to the Lucid Gravity to determine the fastest charging EV you can buy in the US or Europe today. And you charge both from 0 to 100 and fully analyze the results for energy added as well as the range replenishing rate.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I need to really talk about. And in the beginning of the video, I talk about, well, what is the fastest charging electric vehicle? I think it means different things to different people. Quite honestly, you hear a lot of people talk about how fast does a car charge to 80%, and then other people will say, well, my Silverado EV can add 100 kilowatt hour faster than any other vehicle, and they're right with that. So the new GM vehicles, the with the 200 plus kilowatt hour battery packs, can actually add 100 kilowatt hour faster than the Taycan. Well, the Taycan's battery isn't even 100 kilowatt hour; it's 97 kilowatt hour usable, and the Gravity. So, is that a faster charging electric vehicle? It can add 100 kilowatt hour faster than any other vehicle. So you can pick and choose whatever you decide. But for me, I like to talk about the range replenishing rate. How quickly you add driving range. To me, that's my metric. I want to know how fast can you add 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles of driving range. And to me, that's what decides it. So in the beginning, I kind of talk a little bit about that. Then I show the videos where Jordan was with me in California when we charged a Gravity at a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger from 0 to 100%. The day before, Jordan was with Kyle, and he charged a Gravity from 0 to 100% on a 400 kilowatt charge point charger. And oh wow, I got helicopters flying over right over my house is shaking. You know what that means? The
Uh-oh.
president might be coming. Trump's
Oh.
Bedminster golf course is like right behind my house, like 10 miles behind my house, and the military helicopters fly over my house now since he got reelected. And the whole house shakes because there's 3 of them. Anyway, that's I digress. But that's just happening, so he might be in Jersey. But I compared the data. I showed the side-by-side charge recordings from a 2025 Porsche Taycan to the Gravity on the 350 kilowatt EVgo stations to make a comparison. But then later in the video, I talk about Kyle's recording on the 400 kilowatt ChargePort charger. And that's relevant because this 350 kilowatt EVgo station was actually slowing down the Gravity's charging rate because the Gravity can charge it up to 400 kilowatts, but only for like 4 minutes. So it actually, in the end, the difference between a 400 kilowatt charger and a 350 kilowatt charger is like 2 or 3 minutes from like 0 to 90%. So it's almost negligible. You get a little bit more upfront if you're going to if you're going to plug in. Hey, there's Kyle at a super low state of charge and just charge for 10 minutes. The 400 kilowatt charger is the way to go, certainly. But most people are going to hang around a little bit longer. And you see in the recording that and when I compared my 2 recordings, the after like 25 minutes of charging, the difference between the 400 kilowatt and the 350 kilowatt charger was like a minute and a half difference. So yeah, I did a kind of a deep dive comparing Taycan with Gravity using my data and Kyle's data. And I give out a little shot in the shot in the video to let everybody know that's where I got it from. Yeah, it's these 2 vehicles are just insane beasts. The only qualification that I need to say is I'm just using the Gravity's EPA estimated range, whereas with the Taycan, I was using real world data from my 70 mile an hour highway drives and Kyle's 70 mile an hour highway test drives. So once we get behind the wheel of a Gravity to do real world testing, then I'm going to revisit this. But right now, it's so close, you almost can't declare a winner. For instance, 200 miles of range gets added for the Gravity in 10.6 seconds. And 200 miles of range gets added to the Taycan if you use Kyle's rear wheel drive, aero wheel, 70 mile an hour highway range test in 11.4 minutes. So you're talking 25 seconds longer of charging. 300 miles, the Gravity adds it in 19 minutes on the 400 kilowatt charger, 20 minutes on the 350 kilowatt charger, and the Taycan sedan does it in 20.3 minutes if you use Kyle's range test. So you couldn't get any closer when you compare these 2 vehicles as far as how they add range and their miles per minute range replenishing rate. For the first 20 minutes, though, if you want to make the difference for the biggest difference, if you can find a 400 kilowatt charger and charge the Gravity and you drive the car down to 0, which, these are not real world stuff. That's the first 15 minutes is where the Gravity opens up some space with the Taycan, where it actually adds like 7 or 8 more kilowatt hour in that same period of time. But then the Taycan holds 300 kilowatts longer than what the Gravity does. So then the Taycan starts catching up, but it never quite catches up. And then its charge rate lowers because now it's at 70%, 75% state of charge. So if you look at, and Dom, could you post those 2 other charts that I have, the charging graphs? This is really interesting. From 0 to 40% state of charge, the Gravity is charging faster than both vehicles. But that's the Gravity's advantage there from 0 to 40%. And that's Kyle's recording in red, my recording in black for the Gravity, and the Taycan's recording in blue. But now look what happens when you get 40% state of charge. Flip that, Dom, to the next one.
One moment.
Oops. Well, once we get it up there, you'll see the Taycan charges faster from 40 to 80%. And then there you go there. So from 0 to 40%, Gravity charges faster. 40% to 80%, Taycan charges faster. And then once both vehicles are at 80%, they have like the exact same charging curve. So it's pretty interesting how that works. But the fact of the matter is, even though it looks like it's equal, when you add time to this, and one of the charts I put up in my video, I added time. That whole charging curve gets compressed, and you see that in the whole charging session, there's only a 9-minute advantage for Taycan. In all the other time, earlier and later than that 9-minute section in the middle of the charging, the Gravity charges faster. But it depends on, if you're going to say, well, which one charges faster, it depends on how you're going to use it, how you're going to road trip it, how you're going to, you could make the case where the Gravity charges faster if you drive it this way, and the Taycan charges faster if you drive it this way. So it's like a push. I almost can't declare a winner.
Oh, right on. But it looks like a fun video. A lot of our viewers here, I think, have seen it because a lot of people are talking about how much they enjoyed it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is one of those videos where I spent like 40 hours on data. This is a loser money wise. I'll never make money on this video. You have to love what you're doing to do that.
I think what you're saying, Tom, is that's a 2-car solution, and we should also do a race to Vegas with maybe 2 Gravities and 2 Taycans to remove some of the
variables.
Kyle's here, and he destroyed my phone with a LiDAR, so I don't like him, so I'm leaving.
Hey, it wasn't your phone.
You destroyed a phone with a LiDAR? Was that you that had the? Oh, that was from your video. I saw that going around this week.
No, I just posted one this morning, basically doing the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I saw that was pretty interesting, and I had an EX90 on test, and I was like, let's fry another phone, and it really does fry cameras.
Yeah. Right, so it messes up with the CMOS sensor or something inside, basically.
It boils the Bayer filter filter, and then will permanently destroy the CMOS sensor. And so basically it's not unique to the Volvo EX90. It's any 1550 nanometer wavelength that will destroy your sensors. But BMW i7 and Waymo both use 1550 nanometer wavelength. Never had an issue filming those cars. EX90, it'll fry your phone. Pretty crazy.
Wow. Okay, that's a note of caution. People taking pictures of cars out there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if it could just target red light cameras or speed cameras, cool with me. But not with, just frying my cell phone. Anyway, it was a fun video. It was an experiment. We took an old phone to fry it. I also parked it all around my Model 3 to see if I could get it to fry the cameras on that. And it's on our Bits channel. And that's live now.
So you just joined us for a second. I didn't expect to see you today. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for dropping by.
Jordan sent me the link. He's like, I got to run. I'm actually in his hotel lobby right now. So
are you?
We're both in California. I just flew in this morning. Yeah.
Okay. Anything that you want to mention real quick? You have a great video. It's almost 2 hours long, exploring small EV SUVs comparison, which, people always say we need more small, affordable EV information. And you went out and did this incredible kind of comparison with what's out there in the market.
No one watches it.
Yeah, the views are kind of low on that. That's wild.
They're terrible. So it's like, let's do more affordable cars. No one watches. Okay, I'm back to pickup trucks and Silverados and Cybertrucks.
Did you see the Silverado new package this week?
I'm driving something next week, or maybe not next week, a couple weeks. The Sierra version of that I'm driving soon.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
it's just a bit more off-road capable, basically.
The Trail Boss, you mean?
Trail Boss.
We knew
the Trail Boss.
Yeah, Trail Boss.
Yeah, I'd have to do some digging to bring it up. I thought I had it in my notes. I didn't have it. There's so much in the news this week. I didn't actually have that in there. I mean,
well, we've got a whole video on the Bits channel. You can go check it out. Went up last night.
All right, excellent. Anything else and you want to share coming up with you that people should look out for?
I did a full Rivian factory tour this week. We shot like a full in-depth, like how Rivians are produced, which was really cool. We've got, I don't know. I haven't listened to the show yet. I just joined, but did Jordan explain why we're in California?
We saw the Tello yesterday. We talked about Tello.
Yeah, Jordan did that yesterday, but today we're going also another Rivian thing, which will be sick. I'm really looking forward to this. Maybe the viewers can leave some comments. We're going to go meet with Wasim, who's head of software engineering at Rivian. We're spending basically the day with him and his development team, as well as their ADAS team and some other folks, and really dig into what's coming not only for R2, but what's going into R1 updates. And we're going to go experience their engineering labs and shoot a full tour of that as well. So a really nice sort of full Rivian day coming up, which I'm looking forward to.
Very cool.
Right. So are you in the north of California?
Yes.
I'm not sure what Rivian's headquarters are.
Palo Alto.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Right. That makes sense. Oh yeah. There's so many things happen this week. We don't have time to talk about it, but
yeah, I mean, we do have time. We're here unless you got to leave.
Well, I'm good. I didn't want to hold you. I didn't know if you actually wanted to come on the air or not. I saw you in the waiting room, so I put you on the screen.
Oh, but, yeah. Jordan sent me the link. I'm like, you go shower, get ready to get moving here because we got to be there in 45 minutes. And I said, I'll chat with the guys for a bit.
So one thing I did want to mention that, so I'm not sure if you may be spending more time at your track coming up.
Yeah, so we're moving. Well, we haven't ever said anything online about it yet, but no time like the present.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot about that, but I just wanted to have something else that ties into that sort of thing. You're going to be spending more time on the East Coast, Southeast, where we have a lot of Waffle Houses.
Moving back to North Carolina, and so that'll be really interesting. We haven't mentioned it yet, but now here we go. And the idea is we're not getting rid of the hub in Colorado, so we're keeping Colorado. Jordan's out there. We still have other colleagues that are in Colorado. I'm going to go to North Carolina. Timon's moving with me. We've got a couple other guys out there, and we're essentially going to be in the Raleigh area. That means we'll have access to the old track that we used to use. And that's actually going to be where our HQ will move to. That's sort of a process to get over there, but we'll be back at the track. And also back in Raleigh, we'll probably have a little filming studio in Raleigh. Actually, I was talking to Andreas yesterday. He's like, rather than making a little office and like a hub situation in Raleigh, we should open a coffee shop and we should just call it Cars and Coffee. And I'm like, that's the best idea ever. Put some chargers right there, have some cars inside, and have a little coffee shop. And that's where we would film from.
That is a wow. Andreas should trademark that.
I don't think you can, but I think it'd be a good name.
Yeah. I mean, it's right.
Isn't that the name of that show with was it Jerry
Seinfeld?
That's Seinfeld, like comedians in cars getting coffee.
Oh, comedians in cars. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. But Cars and Coffee is like a generally event that a lot of people.
Yeah,
there's
on the
all kinds of them across the country. There's like events that pop up everywhere. But if you have
I don't think
permanent location,
you can trademark it. Yeah,
right.
You can't trademark it because everyone uses it.
Yeah,
but whatever. I don't care. I just think we would just have like one location, and we've got a good friend of mine who wants to open a coffee shop anyway, and I'm like, well, maybe you do the coffee side of the business, we'll do the car side of this, and it'll just be like a fun way for our viewers to hang out.
Right on. So I just really wanted to mention that you're going to be in the Southeast because that's where all the Waffle Houses are, and this week they announced that BP they're partnering with BP Plus to put in 400 kilowatt chargers at Waffle Houses. Like, I don't know the scale of the plan, the ambitions of it all, but it sounds like it's not going to be just one or two.
We've got a Waffle House right behind the hub. I've never been to it.
Oh, in Colorado?
Yeah, they're worldwide. Well, not countrywide, at least.
Right. But in the Southeast, particularly, I think there's like a pretty good density of them. They're everywhere. I mean, I was just when I worked at night, I was at Waffle House every night. It's part of my thing.
Yeah. I mean, weird though. Weird thing. Yeah. I don't know.
you're inside a Waffle House, like ordering, waiting for the food, eating, and everything longer than almost any EV would take, unless you own Chevy Bolt, to charge. So like that's kind of a weird place for a DC fast charging hub. No?
400 kilowatts too. I think they could have saved money and gone like 200 kilowatts should be plenty.
No, if you're going to install DC fast charging now, you install 400 kilowatt, Dom. Okay. Future proof.
True.
But it's just a weird, like at a restaurant type place to have that. Right. I mean, there's a lot of people that have even questioned Walmart because they're like, yeah, I can't. I'll be inside doing my weekly shopping. longer than it takes me to get my car charged. So, but then with like a sit down restaurant, it's even longer. Like you could make the case for like McDonald's and things like that, where you go through drive through, or you walk in, you plug in, you walk inside, you get your food, you come back, sit out in your car, 15, 20 minutes, you unplug and drive away. But Waffle House, you sit down and eat, like
true.
But
True.
more the better.
It's just giving me an idea. Remember, like the A&Ws or like the Sonics now, you drive up. What if you just like could drive up and you have like a little robot? Like Hyundai just showed off their little charging robots to have a robots that can open up the charge ports and just get it back in and everything's taken care of. So if that all happened like at a Sonic or similar kind of restaurant, you just go in and eat, and you're only there for 15, 20 minutes, which is plenty enough for like a lot of charging for a lot of cars.
Tom, I think you underestimate the amount of BZ4X owners that eat at Waffle House.
Yeah. I mean,
charging speed is not a worry there. They'll have plenty of time to eat.
Pull up in a Taycan and you won't even get your order in before you'd have to get out and move your car. Like you wouldn't be seated and have a menu and say, coffee and the working man special or whatever they sell there.
Yeah, they probably won't charge big idle fees, maybe none at all. I actually think I haven't been to Waffle House in probably 10 years, but now this is my excuse to go to more.
Right. Yeah, it's been a while for me too, actually. I eat them every day for like years, and now I don't really have a huge desire to ever have hash browns again. But
I've never been to Waffle House. I don't really have. There's a couple up here, not many.
It's all right. It's it's like a little diner.
All I know, based off what happens in the Waffle House parking lot by our building, I think I'll go to a different one.
Right. Yeah. I guess a lot of people might go, after the bars close, and that's a whole different Waffle House situation.
A lot of fights at Waffle Houses. I think I see videos like on YouTube and stuff, like someone going crazy because they didn't get enough maple syrup, so they sucker punched the waitress or something.
Sorry, that was me last week. Actually, I really apologize. Okay, cool. Well, anyway, so interesting news. I don't know if we're totally wrapping up. Do you guys got to go?
No, I'm good.
I could hang out for a little bit more.
Just a couple minutes. I would be interesting because I haven't chatted with you guys in a while. You remember that barn find of electric cars we got, where we had like 12 of those weird things. So we
were RAV4s, right, and stuff. I think. Yeah.
Yep, RAV4, the Dodge Epic van, which is the one I'm most excited about. S10 electrics, Ranger electrics, a bunch of other stuff. They're all making their way to the track now. So right now they're being loaded up on Danny's truck, and he's just bringing them all out there. So we'll probably have them on display. I was thinking we could build like a little EV museum thing at the track because it's right off I-95, and then we could line them all up in there as we get to work on them. So if anyone's got a weird and unique electric car, let me know, because we would like to add it to the collection.
Okay.
I've been trying to track down an EV1 so hard. Like,
you can't get an EV1.
That's a unicorn, man.
Way.
Oh.
You can't get one. I know you're pointing out you're not getting an EV1.
You're telling me that, but I'm telling you, there's 3 of them that I've been trying to get. A Hyundai Nexo just drove by where I'm sitting. That was cool.
Yeah, like if you announce that you have it, like if you are able to get one from somebody and you announce that you have it, like Jim will come and take it.
No, they won't, because I would have Colorado State University, where our office is, take possession, because schools are allowed to have it.
That's the thing. That's exactly.
Look,
but they can't. Tom. I know the best laid plans of Mice and Kyle. You can't have the university say they own it and then they let you take it and bring it to North Carolina.
Absolutely,
really?
It's for research.
Okay.
So anyway,
that'd be crazy if you do.
Also, if GM does sue us over it, that'd be hilarious to make a video series on. Yeah. And then lastly, there's 3 in Colorado privately owned in Vail.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they don't talk about it. They don't like announce that they have them and stuff.
You could look up the Barada collection.
Yeah.
Or Beata collection. Yeah, the Beata collection. They've got a bunch of weird stuff.
Do they have powertrains in them still?
Yes. No. 2 of them. Yes.
Not the original powertrains. The original powertrain?
No, I think they took S10 electrics and took that, but it's essentially identical powertrain.
Yeah. Because GM did remove the batteries and the powertrains on all of them.
except for the one in some museum in DC, Smithsonian or one of those situations. And there's a couple in China that are fully intact.
Oh, right.
That made their way over there. But I went down that rabbit hole like maybe 2 months ago, and I found a couple, and I'm like, whatever we can do. So anyway, if anyone has an EV1 just sitting in their garage, surprisingly, people do. There's like 40 left.
Yeah.
Like way more than we ever thought.
Oh, that's quite a few, actually. Yeah.
Wow. So anyway,
I think Chelsea Sexton knows where every single one is.
Oh, I'm sure she does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
she had Chelsea on one time. I don't know if she's been on our show.
She's kind of.
Didn't she get involved with the government?
Yeah.
She's in policy now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how that's what's. Yeah.
Maybe she
might
not.
Not sure. Yeah, she might not want to, and that's most likely why you haven't seen her on any type of podcast or anything. Because I'm sure she gets asked. It's most likely because it's just kind of off limits with what she does now.
Right. Some DYT in the comments mentioned need to get Sparrow was electric 3-wheel enclosed motorcycle on lead acid batteries. Do you recall those? They had Corbin Sparrows, and then they had a different name. They got bought out. If you search.
Oh yeah, those are cool. Oh, that'd be sick. Looks like a little shoe.
Yeah, I have a picture of me with my Mini Cooper. I went to this like bagel shop one morning in New Jersey with my Mini Cooper when I first got it, and nobody knew that it was like electric. And a guy pulls up in one of those. I couldn't believe it, and so we parked next to each other. We were talking about it. So at least at the time, somebody owned one in New Jersey.
There used to be one in Tallahassee too. I've seen around.
And they're fast.
Yeah.
This is like the most Robert Dunn of aging wheels car.
Yeah. Oh yeah, aging wheels. You've
I'm
got.
Sure Robert's got one,
yeah.
Doesn't he? Hold on, aging wheel. Let's look up his channel.
Right.
Wheels.
And then they tried to make a different version of it too. There was.
I don't think he's got one.
There's slightly different versions of it, and they got bought out by people and tried different things.
You should get that. What's it called? It begins with an S. He just did a video on it. The Spiro 4U. If you go to Aging Wheels, you see the Spiro 4U. He has two of them, and he actually wants to sell them because it's hilarious. It's made of foam, like the outside of the car.
I watched that.
And so the funny thing is, the reason why I even know about this, he posted this video a couple weeks ago. At one point, he's talking about the state of charge of it. The state of charge meter doesn't work. Like it says 80%, it's like 5%. Like it just goes all over the place. It makes no reason or rhyme. So while he's reviewing this, and he goes, and the state of charge meter doesn't even work. And he shows a picture of it. And then he flashes a picture of me and my channel that says state of charge. He superimposed it on his thing. So of course I commented, I had a bunch of people say, Tom, like you got a cameo over on Aging Wheels. And I commented like, what's it going to cost? Like, how much is it going to cost? I said, for every time you mention state of charge, to put a picture of of me up on your screen. And he goes, if you buy these two Spiros, I'll do it. I'm trying to get rid of them. So like, that'd be a perfect car for you. You should reach out to him.
Yeah, actually, I think he just filmed.
It's made of like foam.
Robert filmed our Tello video yesterday for Jordan. Robert's a great friend of ours from the channel. He's been on a bunch of our races and stuff, and so he's been involved. He's awesome. I just talked to him this week about his Silverado towing stuff. So, I'll talk to Robert because I want to have like kind of one of everything. I think I've got some stuff he wants. We'll exchange some things.
Yeah, so
should be fun.
I didn't realize they made vans, so this is crazy.
On a last topic, other than the Spiro stuff, I just wanted to gauge your opinion on this, Tom. Why haven't we seen any Lucid Gravities out there? No deliveries. They started production end of last year. The press, they built the like marketing cars. Then I've been bugging them because I want to buy one, or I need a long termer, or I don't care what it takes, but I need one for to have the benchmark for an SUV. And I'm like, I just need a Dream Edition Gravity, get one, whatever it takes. They're like, we haven't even built our press cars yet.
Yeah,
and then it's like, and then it's like, well, what we're 6 months into the year 2025. This thing started production 6 months ago. What's going on?
It was originally supposed to launch in December. of last year.
And they built like 12 and sent them to people.
They actually delivered, I think, 8 in April, because that was like they delivered 8 to whom? I don't know. These people are not out there. They could be employees. They could be whatever. But like there was some kind of filing or something that somebody saw that. No, they had 8 customer deliveries in April.
Okay.
Now we're now and they told us when we went out there that, you know, remember, like, oh yeah, full on delivery start the end of this month. So did they deliver 8 in the no, when we went out there, it was April, remember? And they said the end of this month, which was the end of April, deliveries are supposed to start. So from what I understand, 8 got delivered the end of April. I have no idea what's been going on the first 23 days of May. Have they delivered any more? Have they delivered a couple dozen of them? Are they just delivering them to people and saying, like, you know, and like regular customers, and we just don't hear from these people? It's not like somebody with a YouTube channel or whatever. I don't know. I know I do have an email into them that they haven't responded to that I just sent yesterday, asking them kind of about what's going on, when, you know, when are we going to hear about, you know, Gravity, and, you know, when do we get the opportunity to have some more seat time in them? And I'm waiting to hear back from them. So I don't know. They obviously are having difficulty, you know, getting the thing down the assembly line and in customers' hands, because we should be 5 months into customer deliveries now, and we've got 20, I don't know, 15 that are out there that we know of.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if like the Gravity customer just doesn't talk about their car online because they just bought a car and they're just driving it or whatever. But it's not like I've seen
NDAs.
Yeah, early, but those all expired. So now the first deliveries can talk about their cars, but they were under NDA for sure. Which I also think is kind of, you buy a car and then you can't talk about it. That seems crazy to me. But that's like friends and family close to Lucid. But I know, you know, customers that were not. Like, there's this guy who messaged me who runs the Lucid forums. He got one for his wife. He wasn't allowed to talk about it for months. And like, he doesn't work for Lucid. Like, what the heck? Anyway, I just need one for testing. So if anyone at Lucid's watching, like, Ahmad watches our show, whatever it takes, just send an engineering car and leave it at the office. Like, we keep doing these SUV comparisons, and so many more are coming. And it's like, now's the time to just park one at out of spec so we can at least include it.
Right. But it's kind of the same thing, you know, you send me an engineering one. You don't want an engineering one. You want a production one that the customer I know I want one that's
one is representative, then that's fine.
Representative, I know, but I want the finished product personally. Like specifically if we're going to do range testing, I want one that could have went to a customer's hands, you know, like I think rather than jumping the gun and saying, yeah, give me a week earlier and give me one that's got tape and stuff on it. And, you know, oh yeah, I think it has the latest software. You know, I want a potential customer delivery car. Give me that. And let me play with it for a week.
To buy one at full price if I can get one. I just need one. I don't care what it is. I just feel like it's like the number one comment we get when, like, we have a video that's going up of R1S, EV9, EX90, and Cadillac Vistic, and it's like, where's the Gravity? Like, that's going to be the number one thing. Like, let's go, things out.
And you've got to do Gravity versus Taycan, like race, cross country race or something like this.
Taycan would win.
You have to do it. Well, let's see when the production is out there.
I almost guarantee it. The Taycan rear drive on Aero wheels is incredibly efficient. The thing is, though, you're going up against a 7-passenger giant SUV, and so like the Gravity is incredibly impressive. But just the repeatability of Porsche thermals and like that, like even in the 10% challenge, the Lucid engineers were like, okay, Taycan still got us, but only the rear drive Aero wheels. If you start going up into the all-wheel drive Taycans, especially the wagons, then Gravity might get you. And it's just so impressive what that thing can do. And that's kind of why I want one, because I don't really have a good road tripper. I have no road tripper that I can put the dogs in right now. They don't fit in my Model S, and our e-tron sucks on road trips. So we actually need an SUV with dog mode that can go on a trip, especially for this move to North Carolina. I got to pull them across the country. I don't know what car I'm going to use for that.
Right. And isn't it like the expression "gravity always wins"? Isn't that?
I don't know. Is that like a?
But I don't know. But Gravity is like I feel like it is the benchmark for at least U.S. available vehicles, as for like charging and driving range, passenger comfort, and utility. I think it's like the package basically. It's just the price that makes it everyone who lives in.
But Dominic, you like build a better car, costs more money. Welcome to
right. Right. It's just when you don't have the means to attain that car, but you could really use one. It's kind of just a little bit frustrating.
But I think we can certainly say this: there's enough people with money that can fill up their production slots right now.
True,
because they can't build that many.
Right, but yeah, low bar. But I guess we need to figure that out because I'm waiting to see them like on the streets, and
I'll tell you this: if we
see them online.
If we can't get a Gravity, I'm going to get a Hummer because those are sick. Yeah, and they're like $5.99 a month, 0 down leases in Colorado right now. Like, sign me up for one of those. Liv just commented, love it.
Yeah, when I went down to Texas with Walmart, I rented the Hummer. I haven't driven one in a while, and it was brand new. I got it on Turo. It had like 100 miles on it. And I'm driving it. I'm saying, I forgot how much fun this thing is to drive. I actually, for a hot second, went and looked at used Hummer prices in the area just to see how much they had gone down. And it's pretty
70s.
Low 70s.
Low
like
70s.
You can get a $110,000 truck for $72,000 now with like 6,000 miles on it, and it's tempting. It's tempting.
Right. Hey, real quick, you guys probably going to head out real quick, but Kyle, William wants to know when you're headed back to China or Korea to test vehicles again.
Not Korea, but China. Probably before the end of the year.
Yeah, you're going to drive the YU7. We talked about it at the top of the show.
U7, yeah, probably. That's going to be a hot car. Man, they keep crashing Su7s out there, though, don't they? That's pretty wild.
I mean, it's a lot of car. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but even just like normal ones, like it's definitely abnormal at this point as to how many crashes are happening with that car. Really? And I think it's just like people are like, that's the sporty car, and then they drive them hard and they don't know how to drive. That's my guess.
Right.
When I drove it, it didn't feel weird. It actually drove amazing. There were some weird oddities in the safety systems from like braking performance stuff, but like nothing that would cause a crash. It was just very aggressive on the like over safety. From my time driving it. But yeah, definitely got to go back to China. So much is happening there as usual. And I want to do the dual gun BYD charging thing, which I think would be cool. And a bunch of other stuff.
Right on. All right. Well, I guess we should probably wrap it up. It's only been 2 hours, but we got to end it sometime. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below or get in touch with us on the social media platform of your choice. Don't forget, if you love the show, like the show, please give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, tap that bell icon for notifications. Thank you all for joining us. It's been great, and we'll see you again very soon. Ciao.